Steve and Sean here from Kurrinda Bloodstock, and we are joined by Richard Freedman.
Hi guys.
Hey mate, how are you?
Oh, it's great to be here. Beautiful part of the world up here.
It is.
So we're here at Margan Estate. The context of meeting here, that we've owned our horse farm a couple of k's up the road here for about 4 years, and Richard, you recently copied us.
Yes. I saw how good it looked and I thought I could do that. So I'm just over there. Like literally 500 metres as the crow flies.
And you've trained horses for Andrew Margan for a number of years.
Yeah, we're friends, and he's been an owner in the stable as well. The restaurant here is fantastic. You've got to eat here. It's brilliant. And his wine's good too, which is good because he's a winery.
Yeah, well, he just walked us around. Like, I know nothing about wine, and I don't begin to try to, but I just learnt a hell of a lot. It was great, wasn't it?
So more than 20 years ago, I was on the school bus, all my mates listening to Triple J, and I was listening to the Big Sports Breakfast.
Ah, were you? You were the one. I knew there was one out there that was listening to us. That is nearly 20 years ago. I think I left there in 2007.
And are you still in touch with TK?
He's one of my best mates. We go on holiday together. He was one of my best mates before we'd worked together, and he survived working with me, and then we've remained mates. It's quite amazing.
Brilliant. And we had a great time with you up at Magic Millions a few weeks ago, and we're now partners. We've come away with lot 144, which is a written tycoon colt out of Always in the Money.
He's a cracking type, that colt. He looks like his father. He's got
Spitting image.
Yeah, he's the same colour as his father. He's got the markings very similar, and he's a big sort of lengthy sprinter, which his father was. So if he's almost as good as his father, we'll be happy. But we'll be very happy if he's as good and goes on to have a stud career like his father. We'll all be happy. I'll probably be dead. But you guys will be happy.
No, he's got a fantastic attitude. Like, he's already Shane's favourite at the farm, our farm manager. He's just, those good ones have a presence about him, don't they?
Yeah, I thought he did.
Yeah.
Just everything in the right spot. Had the pedigree. Had all the right vet reports. He's had the good scope and all of that. He's a good one.
And what else did you come away with from the sale?
Tassort filly, which sold out pretty quickly. We ended up with a colt by Hello Youmzane. I've got 2 fillies by Hello Youmzane at the moment. I know a lot of people wouldn't even know that horse's name, but he was a very, very good sprinter in England, and he has been one of the leading, if not the leading, first season sire over there.
Yep.
And the horses I've got by him now are lovely. So that's one I haven't completely sold yet. So he's not an expensive horse. We only paid 100k for him, and not expensive by Magic Million standards. Let me qualify it that way. But yeah, and a number of others. We got given a few horses, so we didn't have to buy them. Horses that were passed in. We bought a lovely capitalist colt after the sale that had been through the sale. So there's a little bit left to sell, but pretty much, I think we're pretty comfortable after Magic Millions. Sometimes I come away from there thinking, I've got 12 months of misery ahead of me selling these horses, right? But not this year. Well, see, that's why I said ahead of me. No, Will's very, very good on the sale.
Yeah.
He's a good salesman, Will, and these days as a trainer, you've got to be.
Yeah.
And it must be a great thrill for you to be in partnership with your son, Will.
Thrill. That's an interesting word. No, Will and I, look, it has its great benefits and its great attraction. And like all family businesses, there's the other side of that too. Because your family never hesitate to tell you what they think in no uncertain terms. And that cuts both ways, I'm sure. But so we have our moments, and he can be intensely annoying to me at times, and I'm sure I am to him. But you always know that you're pulling in the same direction, and that there will not be anything. You don't have to worry for a second that not everything is being done, because he makes sure it is.
And he's had a long apprenticeship. He was at Yarraman Park Stud, Greg Bennett Racing, Godolphin, assistant trainer Freedman Brothers. He was out on his own. So, he's had a long road to get here.
Yeah, we never thought when he was growing up that he would be a racehorse trainer. He had more interest in golf. And he's a good golfer.
Looks like a golfer too.
Be careful.
More of a golf.
Be careful of him, right? If he comes this, well, I haven't got a handicap at the moment and all that sort of thing. Don't play.
So if he goes, let's go for a friendly game of golf.
Yeah, except he always comes away with the money. I'll tell you stories about that after this. About him fleecing some of our owners. I had to put a stop to that.
We'll get to the Freedman Brothers story, but I mean, you're all out on your own these days.
Yeah.
Do you think you train similar to your brothers, or is it?
I'm sure we all do similar stuff because, we've spent so long together and we only learnt the one way to train horses. We started with 6 bush horses and we just copied the best trainers we could see. And at the time, when we got to Flemington with 6 bush horses, we just said, well, we'll just copy him and him. And him was Bart Cummings and Colin Hayes. So a little bit of a blend of both of those and a bit of, stuff we picked up along the way on our own. And our styles would be pretty similar.
You had Zoo Baby run a good race up at the Magic Millions Carnival.
Yeah, she didn't disgrace herself. We was throwing her in the deep end, but we were not sure she'd run the 1400 metres right out. I'm not sure she did. She looked the winner. She looked like she could be in with the winners at about the 200 metre mark, but the last 200, those horses sort of just outstayed her a little bit over the 1400. But I'm sure when she comes back to 3-year-old fillies company at 1200, she's definitely stakes class.
And who's flying the flag for Freedman training right now?
Right here, the horse or the
horse?
Right, I thought you
horse.
meant at Newcastle this afternoon. Hopefully, will. Look, we haven't got a star at the moment. We've got old Coast Watch, goes well, always runs a good race in his grade, which is about listed Group 3 level. But we've got some nice 3-year-olds coming along. Pleasure Artist ran 5th in the Spring Champion Stakes and then 5th in the VRC Oaks after running a placing in I think it was the Ming Dynasty or one of those named after a very good horse, So I think she can go on with a job and be a stakes class filly, like a filly called Horizons.
Yep.
Who is an Autumn Sun filly and will just be coming into her own this autumn, I think. She's only won a maiden, but she looks like she can go on with a job. Pocketing, the horse for Yulong, he just keeps going through the grades, and every time we ask him to do something, he lifts. So I think he's a little better than he looks. So there's a nice level of 3-year-olds. One of them has got to put their hand up to be a Group 1 horse. I couldn't tell which one it would be at the moment.
I always associated Freedman Brothers with Melbourne, but actually you grew up in Yass.
Yeah, yes. It was a fun upbringing. I used to catch the school bus from Yass to Canberra to go to school, and for me it was nearly a 2-hour bus ride on the same bus with the same kids, with the same driver every single school day. And on that bus were the Freedman Brothers, Darren Beedman, Greg Bennett, and a variety of other people. Katrina Hodgkinson, she ended up a minister in the state government, and from this ragtag bunch of kids who used to do nothing else but gamble in the back of the school bus. We'd be playing cards for money. That's where Darren learned how to be such a little sharp bastard. And you know how he ended up so tough? We relentlessly bullied him for about 5 years. So,
Oh, shit.
one day, we got Darren, and we tied him by his tie and his shoelaces into the luggage rack and left him there, right? He took the whole trip there screaming out. Everyone ignored him. Bus driver couldn't hear him. Anyway, so he squared us up for that. And then about 4 days later, we used to get off the bus at a little place called Hall, which had a general store at the time. And we'd all go in and buy lollies, the bus drivers. We'd all go in, off the bus, empty the boat, back on the bus, back to Yass. And Darren always, because he's tiny, got pushed to the back of the line, right? And Anthony Freedman was getting on the bus. The bus driver, Johnny, said, "Hey, Anthony, they all on?" And he looked back and he saw Darren still standing at the counter, and he said, "Yep." Right? So Darren's about 12. We left him at the general store in this one-horse town. And as we're rolling along the highway, the bus driver says, "Where's Darren?" He said, "Oh, we don't know." And he said, there was a big blue on. Next minute, there's a car passing us. He's hitchhiked, and he's giving us the bird, right, as he's going past. So we're claiming a bit of, input into how tough he was as a rider. He could really ride. He could always ride.
Before the inception of Freedman Brothers, you do have a rich family history with horse racing.
Yeah, my great-grandfather probably started that. He was a jockey back in the early 1900s. He rode 3 Melbourne Cup winners, Comedy King, West Court, and one other that escapes me. So he started off the racing thing, and then my great uncle was apprenticed in England to some famous trainers over there, and was one of the leading apprentices in England. Came back here and trained horse, ran second in a Melbourne Cup, and then my father wanted to be a racehorse trainer, but his father didn't think it was a real job, which at the time probably was true. But we ended up on the horse stud after a sort of a gypsy journey through my father being a builder and developer, then a professional fisherman, and back to being a builder developer, and then being a professional thoroughbred breeder. So, we just thought, well, we had it's a very long and old story, which I won't tell here, about our first horse. We flummed it. It got left on our property, so we decided, Lee, Anthony and I would train it. Anyway. And
that was Sitting Bull?
Yeah, it's a long story. Everyone's heard it. But that got us, we just thought, we'll just be racehorse trainers now. It's easy. You line them up and they win, you bet, you win. It's too easy.
So you started Warwick Farm, couldn't get in at Randwick, down to Flemington.
Yeah.
What was your primary role, or what sort of roles did you play in the business over those sort of early years?
Well, we're basically all just strappers, right? Because we did all the work. We couldn't afford to employ people, not for a long time anyway. We arrived in Melbourne. Silly story. This one I can tell. We knew we were going to start a Warwick Farm. We rang up the AJC and said, we want to train at Randwick. And they said, who? What's your name? No. Right, get on the end of the queue. The queue was from here to the front gate long. So anyway, I thought, got to go somewhere better than here at the time. Warwick Farm's good now, but then not so good. And we just happened to be friends. The lady who taught me English was married to Sir Brian Murray, who ended up Sir Brian Murray, Governor of Victoria. And he was governor at the time when we were thinking about all this. He said, don't tell anyone I told you this, but there's a little-known bylaw that says if you buy a racing stable adjacent to Flemington Racecourse, you have the right to train your horses on the track. He said, they wouldn't even know it at the VRC, but I didn't tell you that, right? So anyway, we buy, with our winnings from Sitting Bull and other money, we buy a little stable for 6 horses just adjacent to the track on Fisher Parade. And we go and see Ron King, the manager of the Flemington racetrack. Richard Freedman, Lee Freedman, Ron King, nice to meet you. Yes, what can I do for you, boys? We'd like to train on the track. And he said, oh, really? Where are you now? We said, Fisher Parade. I said, right across the road. We want to train on the track. He said, oh, look, there's a long waiting list here. We said, yeah, we know that. But, Mr. King, did you know that if we buy, told him the story. And he's looked sort of aghast at us and gone, well, nice to see you. I'll get back to you. Just, we had to go and, anyway, apparently 25 years later, someone who was on the committee told us, said, yes, Ron came in and said, these blokes have said this. And a lawyer who was on the VRC committee at the time said, they're right. And they said, well, how are we going to handle this? It'll be a land rush, right? They said, just let them on the course. They've got 6 horses. They're nobodies from nowhere. They'll be gone in 6 months. The rest is history.
And something like 140 odd Group 1 winners.
Yeah.
If I can touch on a couple of those very nostalgic horses. Old Superimpose.
Superstar. We tried to sell him when he was 3. We did. He just wasn't performing the way we thought, and he could have been sold to Hong Kong, and I think he might have failed a bit because he did bow both his tendons as a 2-year-old, so they might have picked that up. Anyway, he didn't get sold. One day, Darren Gauchi rode him and missed the start on him in a midweek at Flemington. And he rocketed home. I think he got beaten on the day, but he just rocketed home. So we started riding him that way. And then he just went on to win 9 Group 1s and, a Cox Plate at the age of 8. He was a freak.
And that 92 Cox Plate, that was one of the best, in terms of the field.
Yeah, it was great. I used to be able to remember all the horses that were in it, though, but it was a who's who. And it would just have been nice if Palace Rain hadn't run, because he fell in front of Naturalism and brought Naturalism down. Naturalism at the time probably could have pulled a cart and beaten Super. As good as Super was, Naturalism had lengths on him at that stage. So he would have won. So when Naturalism hits the deck at the 800 metre mark, we'll go, oh, it's all over, this is terrible. And lo and behold, the old bloke just pulled one out of the fire and won.
For our listeners, mate, the difference between an elite horse like that and an average, say an average provincial horse, what's your opinion?
To a trainer, they forgive a lot of your sins. They survive things and thrive when you don't expect them to. They can have a slight injury, and provided they get to the starting gate, they forget about it. They just push through pain, and that's the difference between those champions and just nice horses. The champions push through pain. They win when you don't expect them to win. They've just got something to do with their heart, lung, their motor is just huge. Their constitution and their attitude, which is I just do my best, and I just want to win, and it's rare.
You mentioned Naturalism. I believe he's one of your personal favourites.
Yeah, he's probably my favourite horse ever. I'm hoping I find one that's even better than him, but he never won the race he should have. We were probably a little bit gung ho on him. The year he went to Japan and only got beaten that far in the Japan Cup, he probably shouldn't have gone, and I think it did affect him. So he only won like 3 Group 1s, but I kind of think in hindsight, we might have managed him differently. He might have won 10 Group 1s. He's just a freaky horse.
Scalacci, lovely big grey, I think 8 Group 1 sprints.
Yeah, he won on that day that Super won the Cox Plate. He won the Moya that day. It was the only dry day of that whole spring.
Some day, that was a day.
And the only 2 horses we had in work that couldn't handle a wet track were those 2, and they both won on that day. Once again, he pushed through a lot of pain, that horse. He had bad feet. He was a big, heavy horse. And for the last 2 years of his racing career, he was pushing through pain and still winning Group 1s.
Mannerism, 92 Caulfield Cup, amongst others.
Very exciting, beating Shane, who still to this day maintains that it was a brilliant ride. I thought Damien's was marginally better. but yeah, she's a great mare. She ran in that Cox Plate too. So that was a bit of a golden era. That 92 year we won the Melbourne Cup, Cox Plate, the Golden Slipper, and the Caulfield Cup with 4 different horses.
Yep.
So it was a big year.
Caulfield Cup Day, to me, now feels like Everest Day. We're in the mounting ring for Everest, but
it's just insane.
You're obviously based up here in New South Wales. So what's your thoughts on what's happening with New South Wales racing, all the prize money?
I think it's great. I think it's fantastic. Like, I'm never going to argue against big prize money and great races. I would distribute that prize money a little differently. I think, and I've had this discussion multiple times, and Peter knows my view. I don't necessarily think he agrees with it, but that's okay. I would be punching more of that prize money down into the lower grades of races, maidens, class 1s, because for most people, that's their horse. Putting massive amounts on top of only a very few races, that's giving more money to fewer people. I'd rather be giving that money to more people. And to do that, I think you've got to spread it down the lower grades. Having said that, they are doing that now with the super maidens and things like that. I would just go further.
And I had lots more horses listed. Mahogany, Sub-Zero, Doremus, Bint Masqué, Dan Zero, Flying Spur, all amazing horses, obviously.
I need to brag, mate.
But,
a long time ago, though. I'd like one of them now.
But Mackay Diva, I think I backed it every Group 1 except for the 3rd Melbourne Cup, when it would, just broke every record.
Freakazoid.
Yep.
She was just freaky. I'll never forget that Cox Plate. I was watching. I wasn't working at Markdell at that time. I'd come to Sydney to work on radio. But I was watching that Cox Plate, And this is the start before she won her third and final Melbourne Cup. That was a lead-up race. You know how they all spread across the track at about the 600. They're all trying to get into the into the mix, you know, out there, so they can get around that corner and be in the mix. Bossy had to push her into a gap. She was going to miss a gap, you know, that she needed to get in. He had to push her into it. And I thought, oh, he's had to push her a bit early into that gap. And then she got back on the bit. They were all off the bit inside her and outside her, and she got back on the bit, and I thought, oh, it's the end of them. You know, she just cruised in. And then went and won a third Melbourne Cup.
Tough.
You don't find horses with a heart lung like that. You know, she didn't have to be trained much harder than any other normal stayer. She was about the same, but she's had this huge motor that just kicked in with about 400 metres to run, and you know, while the others are all gasping, she's just getting into it.
Yeah.
You, away from racing but connected, you've had a long career in media.
Yeah.
Are your breakfast radio days over?
I hope so. I'm sure of it. I've been doing a bit of radio with Triple M. Not sure that's going to continue. I haven't heard from them. I know it's killing season when they kill off all the shows, but it'd be nice if they gave me a call and said, your show's dead. They just left me. So we might have to take that show somewhere else. The Dead Set Legend's been going for 16 years. And I don't know, it might be on. I don't know. We'll find out eventually. Probably about 2 days before it goes to air for the next year. They might tell us. Anyway.
Well, that's a lot of fun. Thank you so much, Richard. Really good to spend time with you.